Let's dive right in. We're going to talk about this really powerful idea from game theory that explains something we've all seen: why some group deals hold together and others just completely fall apart. It's all about finding stability in a world where everyone's constantly looking for a better deal. I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever been there? You're on a team, you've got a plan, or maybe you're starting a business with partners. Heck, even just trying to pick a restaurant with friends. Everyone finally agrees, and then suddenly, two people whisper in the corner, make their own better plan, and peel off, leaving the whole original deal in shambles. Well, it turns out there's a really elegant mathematical reason that happens. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the basic problem of why groups are so unstable. Then, we'll define the solution concept, which is called the core. After that, we'll see how it applies to everything from economics to matching doctors with hospitals. And finally, we'll get into the really interesting part: why perfect stability is actually so rare. All right, so let's set the stage with the fundamental challenge here. What happens in a situation where it's not just about what you can do alone, but about what any possible subgroup of people can do if they decide to team up? This brings us into the world of what are called coalitional games. And the key idea, the big shift in thinking, is that power doesn't just lie with individuals anymore. Power lies with any potential group or coalition that can form. They can just decide to make their own side deal and completely ignore everybody else if it helps them. Okay, so this classic example just lays out the problem perfectly. Let's say player 1 and player 2 team up. They decide to split $100 50-50, and they tell player 3, sorry, you get nothing. Seems stable, right? But it's not. What's to stop player 3 from going to player 2 and saying, hey, ditch player 1, team up with me, and I'll give you $51? Player 2 agrees, of course. But now player 1 is on the outside, and he can go to player 3 and offer her a better deal. This cycle can literally go on forever. No deal is safe. So all this chaos, right? It begs the question, is there any such thing as a truly stable, deviation-proof agreement? Well, game theorists have a name for the set of deals that are safe. They call it the core. Before we get to the core itself, let's just put a formal name on this. We're in a coalitional game. All that really means is we're looking at situations by analyzing what any possible group can do together, not just what one person can do on their own. And here it is, the core. It's actually a pretty simple but really profound test for stability. A deal is in the core if, and only if, there is no subgroup of players, no coalition that can go off on their own and make every single one of its members better off. It's like every possible team-up has veto power. If even one little group can find a better side deal, the main deal is unstable. It's not in the core. Right, so you can think of it like this. Outcomes that are in the core are basically unblockable. They're immune to the temptation of side deals. Any deal that isn't in the core is fragile. It's just waiting for a savvy little group to come along and tear it down. All right, enough with the theory. Let's see where this thing actually shows up in the real world, because this isn't just an abstract idea. The core gives us some surprisingly sharp predictions about things like wages and market prices. Let's start with a classic setup. You've got one landowner and a bunch of workers who want a job. The more people the landowner hires, the more food the estate produces. But each new worker adds a little bit less than the one before, the classic diminishing returns. So the big question is, what's a stable wage? And the answer, which this chart shows perfectly, is all about what economists call marginal product. That's the extra bit of value that one specific worker adds. The core predicts that no worker can be paid more than their marginal product. And why is that? Well, think about it. If the landowner was paying one worker more than the value they added, he could just form a new coalition with all the other workers, fire the expensive one, and he'd be better off. The constant threat of being replaced by another coalition of workers keeps wages right at the level of contribution. Okay, so that's wages. What about prices? Let's scale this up to a whole market. Imagine a bunch of people who own horses and a bunch of people who want to buy them. Everybody has their own personal price, what they're willing to sell for or willing to pay. What does the core predict happens here? So here's a super simple market. Two sellers, Sigma 1 and Sigma 2, who'd sell for $100 and $150, and two buyers, Beta 1 and Beta 2, who'd be willing to pay up to $200 and $180. You can see right away there's room for deals. Buyer 1 values a horse way more than seller 1 does. So what happens? And this is a genuinely profound insight. See, most economic models just start by assuming a single market price exists. The theory of the core doesn't do that.
It just starts with people and what they want. The single stable price isn't an assumption, it's a consequence of stability. If any one buyer and seller tried to make a deal at a weird price, some other buyer and seller could form a new coalition and say, hey, we can make a slightly different deal that's better for both of us. This constant pressure from all possible pairs is what forces the market to converge on one price. Stability creates the price.
Now, if you think this is just about money and markets, you are in for a surprise. This is where the concept gets even more powerful. The core isn't just about money. It can find stable solutions for incredibly complex social problems where there's no price at all. So take this classic puzzle, the house exchange problem. You've got a group of people, they each own a house, but they all have a ranked list of houses they'd rather have. The challenge is to reassign the houses in a way that's stable, meaning you can't have any small group of 2 or 3 or 4 people who could just break off and swap houses among themselves and all be happier.
And believe it or not, there's this beautifully simple algorithm that finds a perfect, stable solution that's guaranteed to be in the core. It's called the top trading cycle procedure. You just have everyone point to the house they want the most, then you look for loops. If Amy wants Bill's house and Bill wants Amy's house, that's a 2-person cycle. You let them trade, give them their top choices, and they leave the market. Then you just repeat the process with whoever is left until everyone has a new house. It's elegant and the outcome is totally stable.
And this is not just some cute puzzle. This exact kind of thinking is at the heart of one of the most important matching systems in the world, the program that assigns tens of thousands of graduating doctors to their hospital residencies every single year. That system uses an algorithm called deferred acceptance, which creates a matching that is in the core. Here's kind of how it works. In round 1, all the doctors apply to their number 1 choice hospital. Each hospital looks at its applicants, tentatively holds on to its favorites, and rejects the rest. In round 2, all the rejected doctors apply to their number 2 choice. The hospitals then look at their new pool of applicants, the ones they were holding plus the new ones, and again, they hold their favorites and reject the rest. This goes on and on until no one's getting rejected anymore. The result? A stable matching, where there's no doctor-hospital pair who'd both rather be together than with their assigned partners. No side deals possible. So, up to now, the core seems like this amazing tool for finding stable solutions. But, and this is a big but, sometimes a stable solution just doesn't exist. Sometimes the core is empty.
Let's rewind all the way back to our first example, the 3-player game. We saw exactly what happens. Players 1 and 2 make a deal, but then 2 and 3 can make a better deal for themselves, blocking the first one. But that deal is vulnerable to a new deal between 1 and 3, and that deal can be broken by 1 and 2 getting back together. You see the problem? It just goes around and around forever. There is no single outcome that is immune to being blocked by some subgroup.
This is what we call an empty core. It means that no matter what deal you put on the table, there is always some subgroup that has an incentive to break off and do their own thing. And this isn't just some weird quirk of a simple game. It happens in the real world all the time, especially in things like voting systems, but also in some markets and even trying to assign roommates. Sometimes instability is just baked into the situation. And that leaves us with this huge, really fascinating question. If the core can be empty, if mathematically perfect stability is often impossible, then how does anything ever get done? What are the other invisible forces at play? Things like laws, social norms, institutions, or maybe just the sheer difficulty of constantly making new deals that hold our incredibly complex societies together and keep them from just unraveling into an endless cycle of chaos. It's really something to think about.